Hi, welcome to Tinker's Venture. I'm Kai. In the last video, we went over the true and not so true functions of the Toyota aftermarket upper control arms. And in this video, we'll compare the common materials and constructions to help you choose the most optimal design for your particular needs. To keep this video organized, I will break it into 3 sections: the control arm body design, UCA ball joint design, and at last, the frame pivot design. Alright, let's get started. Starting with the AccuTune Off-Road UCA, it uses a round tube design, which is the most common in aftermarket UCA. One benefit of the round tube profile is that it has more clearance all the way around, for things like remote reservoir hoses and wider tires. Some manufacturers advertise large diameter and beefy tube, or use fancier material like chromoly. As we went over in the last video, the strength of the UCA is not the limiting factor for most people, and we should consider the context of the whole vehicle. So in my opinion, those are a little unnecessary. And as someone lived in the Northeast Rust Belt, a powder-coated steel constructions do require a little more attention. A nice-looking billet aluminum ball joint cap is also common on this type of construction. There is a small detail on AccuTune's design I really like. Inside the ball joint cradle, there is a groove to receive the O-ring from the cap, and this creates a snap fit. In other manufacturers, the O-ring is just squished into straight walls, and some even use double-sided tape, which you need to replace every time you grease the ball joint. I mean, seriously? The body of the SPC is a single-piece forged steel. Forging has a high tooling cost, so only large companies like the SPC can afford doing something like that. The SPC design has a very thin vertical profile, but rather thick horizontal profile. I have seen some report certain remote reservoir holes will interfere on the inside edge, but with some work you can work around that. And this construction is also heavier than the typical tubular design. The weight of the UCA isn't so high on the list for me, but for someone who's more weight conscious, every bit counts. And at last, we have the Ironman Pro Forge UCA. It is also a forged design, but out of aluminum alloy. This is great news for someone who lives in the Rust Belt, because aluminum is a lot more corrosion resistant than steel. And on top of that, Ironman put a hardened zinc coating on the aluminum arm, which creates probably the most corrosion resistant construction out there. Both Ironman and AccuTune Off-Road use OE replacement ball joint, which means any ball joint that fits the Toyota control arm will fit on these two. So it is very easy to source replacement part at a very good price. A good price doesn't mean they are cheaply made, but simply a very high economic of scale. AccuTune used a greasable version with metal-on-metal interface, which is similar to the very popular Moog problem solver. If you like to soak your truck in mud water all the time, the greasable feature is nice to have because it can push contaminants out of the boot. On Ironman, it used a non-greasable version just like factory. As long as it's a quality unit, it should still last a long time. Nevertheless, if you really like the greasable function, you can easily swap it out for a very low cost. SPC ball joint is their proprietary design. Its special mechanism can bring some very practical benefits, which we went over in the last video. It advertised bigger, stronger balls and higher articulations, but I don't think it is very relevant to late model Toyotas. Many years ago, they swapped to this new generation with the grease fitting, and so far, it has shown very good track record for reliability. Many years ago, uniballs or spherical bearing is what everyone wants for their UCA, and almost all manufacturers offer only a uniball version. And over the years, people start to realize how quick they wear out and get loose, so the industry starts to shift to the fully sealed ball joint designs. Many people thought the uniball offered more articulation, but turned out the 1-inch uniball offered just the same amount of angle as the factory ball joint. But I do have to give one props to the uniballs. That is, even after it is worn and got loose, it can still go a long way before it actually fell and separate. Compared to a ball joint, if it ran out of grease and worn out, it could pop out the socket much sooner. So in some way, the spherical bearing has a higher margin of safety against catastrophic failure. That is why it is widely adopted in racing application. They don't care if it's loose, they just need to finish the race. But for us recreational enthusiasts, ball joint is the way to go. Hey guys, I want to take a moment and thank Walls Outdoor Workwear for supporting this channel. A friend at Walls is a Tacoma guy, and he really enjoys my videos. So Walls decided to send me some cool new gears and support what I do. If you also like to get dirty and tinker with your truck, make sure to check out Walls Outdoor Workwear through the link in the description. The Ironman UCA uses rubber bushings, just like the factory ones. The key benefit of this bushing is it has zero sliding or bearing surface, so it is guaranteed to be noise-free. As the suspension cycles, the rubber twists. Some people doesn't like the fact that it is not free pivoting and thought it will add some resistance for suspension travel. That is technically true, and you can feel a lot of resistance when you twist it by hand. But in the context of the load on the vehicle, I think those resistance are pretty negligible. And because there is zero bearing surface, it is truly maintenance-free. And if you install it properly, it is typically the longest lasting option. The rubber bushing also offers the best vibration dampening. That is why it's used everywhere on OE manufacturing. However, there is one potential downside, and because these bushings can dampen vibration, they are more compliant, thus can deflect under load. This will come down to personal preference. If you think your factory Toyota handles just fine, then these would do just that. But some people really like a tight race truck handling, then these may not be the best option. For tight handling, both SPC and AccuTune uses rigid flex joint pivots. SPC uses their proprietary X-axis joint. It is basically a spherical bearing, so it pretty much eliminates the deflection. But unlike the traditional spherical bearing, the X-axis joint is fully sealed with rubber boot. It has nylon races and lubricated with grease, so technically it is maintenance-free. I'm not sure if it will last as long as the factory-style rubber bushing, but it looks very promising. The modular heim joints on AccuTune Off-Road is a pretty common setup in racing application. AccuTune uses FK USA heim joints, which are quality components. They also come with these rubber dust shield, so they will probably last a little longer, and most other brands are just running them naked. I don't have first-hand data to back this up, but my guess is the heim joint won't last as long as the X-axis joint, simply because it's more open to the environment. One side benefit of the heim joints is adjustability. You can thread the heim joints in and out and fine-tune your alignment, but these adjustments require removing the long UCA bolt. I have done it on my FJ, and it was really tedious. I'll say this adjustment is really a last resort, and probably 98% of people will not even touch this. Another common frame pivot is polyurethane bushings with a steel inner sleeve. They have similar stiffness, or maybe just a little bit stiffer than the factory rubber ones. But the key difference is the polyurethane bushings has a sliding bearing surface against the steel inner sleeve. Polyurethane is not intrinsically a bearing material, so this requires very consistent greasing. Greasing these do require loosening the long bolt, otherwise you may risk damaging the bushing. And even if you keep up with all the maintenance, from my experience, they just don't last very long as they will get loose. The only benefit for these bushings are ease of manufacturing, but for the end user, you kind of sign up for a lot of maintenance with not much benefits. For someone who's just looking for a moderate build and not so keen on messing with their truck all the time, the Ironman Pro 4 UCA is truly the low maintenance option. Set it and forget it. I really like the highly corrosion resistant aluminum body, and I really like the factory style rubber bushings for no maintenance and vibration dampening. But if you really like to run even larger tires or have a more negative wheel offset, SPC and AccuTune are the only options out there that allow you to push the tires significantly forward for body mount clearance. Between these two, I prefer the OE-style ball joint on the AccuTune and its slimline tubular design. However, SPC does have a slight edge on alignment flexibility, and I really like the maintenance-free X-axis joint frame pivots. Now, if you haven't watched part 1 UCA video where we went over the functions, you should go check it out now. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.